How many of you have read through the Bible, been working your way through it, and saying to yourself, I really don't understand it. I don't understand what they're talking about. Well, that's what this podcast is all about. This podcast is called Breaking Verses Down, and our job here is to break Bible verses down so concretely that they make complete sense to you. We break down words, we break down themes, we break the content down so that you understand the Bible better. Because what's the point of reading something that you don't understand? We need to understand what God is trying to say to us. I hope this podcast bless you. And away we go.
Man, do I ever have to invest in a new chair? Listen to this thing. I'm barely moving in it, and that's what I hear. I think I might WD-40 it, but that's the problem. If I do that, I'm going to be sucking up those fumes. I'll just get a new one. I don't know. I'll figure it out. You guys don't mind a creaky chair, do you? Yeah, adds character. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Verses Down. And welcome to a very special episode. And I will get to that in just a second. But first, I gotta tell you something. And I just gotta say it right now. So most of you already know this, but I am a tall individual. I am 6'3", which is just above average for males in North America. And I walk around, and some people refer to me as a giant. I don't think I'm really a giant, but some people say that. And it could be because I live with my wife and her Chilean family. We're all in the same house. They're upstairs, we're downstairs. We share the house. Welcome to 2024, and every one of them is under 6 feet tall. Yeah, they're all under 6 feet, and the house is adjusted according to that. So when you get me, big 6'3" Jason, walking up and down the hallway and into the garage and stuff, it can be a little bit challenging, you know. I gotta tell you, I have pounded my head off of so many things in this house since we moved in. It's unbelievable. I have pounded my head off of shelving, off of tent frames, off of bird feeders, off of shower curtain rods. I've even pounded my head off of windowsills, but that's something completely different. That's just called me being who I am. But the point is, I am a big man living in a small man's world. And the problem is, it's not going to get any better. You see, in the garage, our shelves are lower. And I basically, if I want to take the recycling out now, I have to like get into like the squat position and get my workout just to take the recycling out. I shouldn't complain though, because I live in a very beautiful house. It's just a matter I got to remember to lean down a little bit. And I was thinking what I could do is refuse to get things that are high for people that live here. You see, all these short people, they have no problem with me pounding my head off of things. But when they want something that's high, guess who they call? Yeah, you got it, Mr. Jason McKenzie here. So if I refuse to get things that are high for them, maybe, just maybe, they'll get my attention. But that is never, ever going to happen because I'm too much of a nice guy. And quite frankly, I don't want to let anybody down. So I'll just keep living my head pounding lifestyle and do my thing here, and that's just the way it has to be, I'm afraid. And that was my half-hearted attempt to make you laugh at something. Because in my world, in our world, our being my family's world, this past week has not been a laughing matter at all. And here we go into the serious stuff. Once in a while, you have to do that, I guess. It was quite serious this past week. What I'm about to talk about, I've decided that I'm not going to name names. I will use letters instead to refer to people. I will tell you what happened in this past week. It was one of those weeks where something went down that you never thought that it would happen to you. You never thought that this would happen to you. It's something that you see on the news and you say, those poor guys that are going through that, but that can never happen to me. No, not in my world. Well, it happened. What am I getting to? I'll just read it out here. That'd probably be the best. You see, my wife has a cousin. I'm just going to refer to that cousin as Jay. So Jay is her cousin. I've never actually met him, but I have heard so many wonderful things about him. So many great stories from the family about him. I wish I would have seen him before, because this is what I'm talking about. I'm reading off of the BC Crime Watch. On October 1st, 2024, Mackenzie, British Columbia, Canada, RCMP, announced a charge of second-degree murder has been approved against D following a tragic incident that occurred in the early hours of September 29th, 2024. Police responded to reports of gunfire in the 100 block of Centennial Drive and discovered a deceased male inside a residence. This case is being investigated by the BC RCMP North District Major Crime Unit in collaboration with Mackenzie RCMP and the BC Coroner Service. D has a criminal history dating back to 2022 when he apparently was accused several times to related offenses. If you see him, do not approach him, call 911. And the police were asking for information about him, but since then he has been arrested. And I'll leave that at that. The unfortunate person that got shot in this situation and died was my wife's cousin, a man that I had never met, but I heard so many wonderful stories about. And now I'm going to live with a regret of never actually getting to know this person because he's gone. So you hear things like that and you say to yourself, well, I mean, you go through the stages of grief, and it didn't hit me as much as it hit my wife and the family that I love. And it's tough. It is very tough watching them go through the stages of grief, hurting, pain, unbelief that this thing has gone down this way. And you just ask yourself, well, now this is the situation, so where do I go from here? Where do we go from here? Because this thing that you thought could never possibly happen to you all of a sudden has happened. You know, this walk with God, this thing that I talk about here on this podcast, it's not just a little storybook. This is real stuff. This is heavy stuff, and this is stuff that you have to deal with sometimes in your life. So I'm sitting there and we're thinking, where do we go from here after having this tragedy come upon our family? And you ever wonder why bad stuff happens to good people? Like, you have something like this that is just not just impactful, but it's just horrific. To lose a loved one in this way when they're murdered, it's horrible. You feel so violated that this loved one was ripped away from you. You ever wonder why bad stuff happens to good people? Well, I know why. And maybe not everybody that hears this wants to agree with this, but this is how I have it understood anyway. Because we live in a fallen world that is led by sinful ways and selfish motives, and the enemy is the king of that kingdom, this worldly kingdom that we are living in. Christians, they say we're in it, not of it. Well, that is one way of explaining what happened here. We lost a loved one in this way. We're in a fallen world. We're in a world that is full of sin. And the sin that because God has so much respect for us, that he gives us free will. I mean, we got free will to live our life the way we want to. And the other people that are corrupt like this, they have free will as well. And you get to choose which path you want to go. Do you want to go in the path of righteousness, or do you want to go in the path of corruption? He gives us that free will. Choose righteousness. And, I could have got angry at God about this. When we found out about it, it was right after church, right after worshiping him. So I go from worshiping him, my wife and I are worshiping him and just loving on God, to receiving a phone call from my wife's sister in just a total panic because Jay has been murdered. Jay has been taken away from all of us. I could have sat there and got angry at God about this. I could have reminded him about all the things that I do, get all righteous and self-righteous and all that, and say, God, I teach your word in Bible studies. I preach your word on this podcast, which has been heard worldwide. I mean, my wife and I, we volunteer in children and youth ministries. We know how important those are. We teach our children, our very own children, about your love and that God never lets you down. We say things like that to them. And yet, something like this, something this horrific happens. When I first came to know the Lord, I thought, oh, well, this must be how Christianity goes. Everything is just rosy and it just works out perfect for you from here on out. Wrong. That's not how it works. We are in a fallen world that is led by sin, but we have the answer living right inside of us. And the truth is this: Jay dying in this way, it was not God's plan. God did not plan for this to happen, but it happened. This fallen world took him from his family. It was all led by sin, on top of sin, on top of sin, on top of sin. And this is why it's so important that you know him. Who's him? God the Father. How do you get to him? Through his Son, Jesus Christ, declaring him in your life, saying Jesus Christ is Lord of my life. And the Holy Spirit will just flow in me and through me, living my life for God. It is so important that you know. And why? Because when this fallen, nasty, mean world hits you with this massive ball of unfairness, because this isn't fair. Life isn't fair. That wasn't fair, what happened to my wife's cousin. It was completely unfair. But life throws those things at you, and you need to be ready that you know him. Many years ago, I was listening to a preaching from John Hagee, very anointed preacher. I love John Hagee. I love his hellfire and brimstone style of preaching. And I heard him talking one day about, and forgive me if I don't completely quote this 100% accurate, but he was in a barbershop, I believe, and he was going to get a haircut. And then he went in on the chair to get ready for a haircut, and this guy in the chair beside him said, "Hey, aren't you that preacher man?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm that preacher man." And he said, the guy sitting beside him was just big and strong and powerful and just ripped, just this monster man. He said, "Tell me something. Why should a person like me need God right now? Look at me. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I got it all going on. I got looks. I got a way of doing my thing and the swag that I got in my step. My life is great. I got my Harley out there. I can do a burnout anytime I want and just feel the wind against my face. Why does a person like me need to know Jesus? And John Hagee said, everybody's going to need to know Jesus one day. Even you. He said, yeah, whatever. And he just shook his hand at John Hagee and he went out the door. Got on his Harley and he thought he was going to put on a show for the preacher that's sitting in the barber chair. So he did a big burnout when he left the barber shop on his hog. And as he did that, he lost control and went head on into a power pole and died from his injuries. That man that was big, strong, powerful, don't need God. No, I'm where it's at. All of a sudden, he needed to know that he knows, that he knows, that he knows him. It's so important to know him. And let me show you why it's so important to know. This is where we get into the word here. I want to read this week from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 54 and 55. So 1 Corinthians 15, 54 to 55. Thank you, Lord. And this is going to show us why it is so important. So I'm going to read it here, starting at verses 54. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? So here we go. I'm going to break things down. That's what I do on this podcast show. And this one's no different. And I'm going to break down verse 54 here. And we look at a few words here that would help us if we understood clearly what the meaning of them is. And the first one is corruptible. What does it mean to be corruptible? Because in the verse it says, so when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption. To be corruptible means able to be made or to do something dishonest or immoral. So if you're corruptible, you are able to be made to do something dishonest and immoral. Guess what? We're all like that. If we're just looking at our fleshly self, just who we are corruptible. Our human, fleshly, physical self is corruptible. We are able to be made to do something dishonest or immoral. Before I knew Lord, I did stuff that was corruptible. And I'm not proud of it, but it's true. But it also says that we put on incorruptible. I know that English sounds weird there, but I'm going to go with it. It's King James. So, incorruption or incorruptible means not subject to decay. So, if you are incorruptible, you are not subject to decaying. So, apart from Christ, when we're doing our own thing, we are corruptible. We do things that are dishonest and immoral. We are decaying inside this shell of a body here in our ability to be everlasting. So our ability to live with Jesus forever and ever and ever and ever. If we're not saying Jesus is the Lord of our life, if we're just living out of our flesh and not going there with Jesus, then we are corruptible. We are decaying. We are slowly falling apart. And if we don't get that figured out before we pass away, I don't even want to go there. I hate talking about that. But when we put on, because the word says put on, when we put on Jesus's victory and what he did for us on that cross, we are incorruptible in our spirit. We are going to be living forever and ever with God. We are not subject to decay. It is so important that we know that we know that we know him and his ways, God and his ways, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. And this death of Jay, unfortunately, has proven that, but he knows. We've had My mother-in-law, she had a vision of him in heaven. And we just know that he's there. He knew Jesus Christ. He knew him. And because of that, he is in heaven. He is in a much better place than we are now as we grieve this, how we feel. And as we feel violated, we need to know that he's there. He is living an incorruptible life with Jesus. And that is my ultimate goal in life. Now, there's another part there. It says mortal and immortal. Well, mortal means causing or liable to cause death. So again, if we're living in the flesh, we're living a mortal life, and we're causing or liable to cause death to ourselves. If we want nothing to do with Jesus Christ, then we are living a mortal lifestyle. But we can also live an immortal lifestyle, because the scripture says here, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. Put it on is just such a wonderful way of saying this, and just a wonderful way of seeing it. Yeah, I was mortal, but I put on me the immortalness of Jesus. Immortal means living forever, never dying or decaying. You are going to live forever and ever and ever in heaven with Jesus if you make Jesus the Lord of your life. So apart from God, we are liable to cause death to ourselves and who we influence too, by the way. Because people are watching you, and believe it or not, people are copying you. And how you live your life is how they see you as thinking that is the right way to live. So with God, we are living forever, and we won't ever die or decay. And the word says here, so when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. Jay has died. Jay has died. Well, let me tell you something. If he's in heaven like we believe he is, death has been swallowed up by victory. Whose victory? Jesus' victory has swallowed up death. With God, we are living forever, and we will not die and decay. Now listen, this doesn't mean, by the way, this doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt right now. This hurts. And I must admit, it's been over a week now since we got the news, so it's not stinging as much as it was, but man, did it sting last week for my poor wife, choking on her tears. I know it's like that for the whole family and the extended family. It hurts. But underneath all of that, the point here is to know that we all know God, and we have given our lives to Jesus. And because we've done that, death has been swallowed up in victory. I can see this little fish going around called Death, and he's going around trying to kill anything he can. And then this other fish that's called Victory just shows up and just eats that death and just swallows it up. It's not going to hurt anymore. We are victorious in what Jesus did on a cross. And when something happens like this, let me tell you, knowing that that person knows Jesus and is with Jesus and is in heaven, that is the most reassuring, most comforting thing that you could possibly hear in this type of a situation. Because Jay is just having a blast being with Jesus. And I want my family to have no doubts where I am going when I go. And that's why I live this life. That's why I put on God's love on me. That's why I put on Jesus' victory. That's why I put it on, because I want my family to know that I chose incorruptible and immortal. I chose that. That is what I chose. And I want you to know that. If you choose that, that's where you're going too. And that's what I believe Jay has done, and that's where he is. O death, verse 55, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Jesus absolutely defeated death, swallowed up by his victory. So Paul, writing Corinthians here, says, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Death does not have a victory. Jesus defeated it when he gave his life on a cross, went down to hell, took the keys back, and 3 days later, he was gone from the tomb. Death has been defeated, and that is where Jay is. This has been such a tragedy. But if we can look at it that way, we can see that in behind the tragedy, there is a beauty. You know, I think about a forest. I just get this vision of a forest that has a forest fire. And it's a tragedy. This beautiful, luscious forest just burnt to the ground. But after it's all done, and all those ashes are spread all over the place from the forest that was burnt down, it creates new crops, new agriculture, new lusciousness in the forest. It creates something. The tragedy created a beauty. And if we can look at this and say that Jay is there right now, there's some beauty behind this. And our tears can change from tears of sadness to tears of gladness, because God loves us so much, and we know that we know that we know him. I hope that this family that I married into, I hope that you're all blessed with this. And I'm very, very proud and very, very happy to be a part of you. I know we all don't see each other as much as we probably would want to, but just know that from our place here, we love you. We love you, we love you, we love you. And we truly believe that Jay is in heaven right now. And God is so good. So go through the grieving. It's a process. But we will go through that process. And Jay will be missed by the people, especially his mom, dad, sister, and his little daughter. And on the description of this podcast, I'm going to put a GoFundMe link that the family is trying to raise money to support the daughter with her schooling now that dad is gone. And I want to say one more thing before I go. And I don't know if everybody is quite there yet from the family, but I just want to say this from the bottom of my heart. This person that has done this horrible thing, I called him D. I want them to know, as you can probably hear my kid bellowing in the background. I told him not to do that, but he did it anyway. I want D to know, even though he's done this horrible, despicable, disgusting, vile thing, that if he calls Jesus Lord of his life and repents for his sins, he can be just like that one thief that was on the cross beside Jesus. And Jesus said, you will see paradise today. That is possible. I don't, this person has done a horrible atrocity to our family. But I don't want to live my life unforgiving, angry, just frothing at the mouth, wanting justice. Billy Graham once said, I'd rather have mercy than justice when I go up in front of the Lord and get to the pearly gates and want to get in. I want mercy. I don't want justice. I want this person to know Jesus so that they will never, ever, ever, ever do this again, and that they'll know heaven as well. I forgive them. Now, I believe that they should get the punishment that they deserve for what they did, but I don't want to fill my heart with hate towards this person. I want to live my life for Jesus. I want to be a role model for my kids. So I don't know how everybody's feeling with that, but that's where I am with that. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? With Jesus in your heart, the enemy has no victory in your life. Bad things will happen to good people, but Jesus has overcome them all. I'll leave it at that. And I'll just say I love you people. I pray blessings on you. Pray for my family as we work through this. Really, honestly, we could really use it right now. And yeah, that's where I'm going to end today. Lord, I give you glory and I give you praise in this. God bless everybody. I'll see you soon, Jay.
If you like what you heard on this podcast today, and I'm trusting God that you did, there's only one way to get the message out. Like it, share it, post it. I would be so thankful if you did that for me, and we'll get this word out so that other people will be blessed by it. Talk to you later.